Yes, it's okay to tell white lies because we all go through that one question and it has to do with clothes. Honey, how do I look?
If you know your partner, you know them well enough not to ask them that question if you know they're gonna say something negative or something you don't want to hear.
Hello, somebodies. Welcome back to the channel. You got me, Mr. Mafuchi, and in the world where you can have the eye candy and the ninja on the same channel, it is this one in Marriage Pros because you have your boy, Jay.
Hello, people. Hello.
So, you're back, and today's topic will be communication because we've heard that it is important. So, now, somebodies, let's get to the quick shot. Here we go.
Important or communication is really important, and I've learned that also not too long ago. Um, Most marriages break up or people separate in marriage because they don't know how to communicate properly. If I'm saying something to my spouse and they're hearing something completely different, we're offline with what's going on. So we need to sit down and say pretty much, okay, I'm saying this, what did you hear? And they can say, I heard this, and I was like, I didn't say that, or I didn't mean it in that way. How can I go back and say, okay, I meant this for you to take it this way? So there's a lot of issues that happen, and I love to use the example of Married at First Sight because they don't know how to communicate with each other, and some people don't have the tools to communicate. And depending on how what kind of household you grew up in, where your parents are always fighting and arguing, you're not going to learn how to communicate that way. So I feel one, premarital counseling is pretty important because they can teach you tools how to communicate, especially when you're a newlywed. And I feel communication, doing it properly, doing it right, just learning people, your spouse's language. Okay, how do you communicate with someone, and how do they receive what you're saying? So I'm gonna touch on that. I have an example that I'm gonna use later on in this episode, and it kind of took me by surprise when my wife and I went through this communication little glitch.
Yes, communication. It's been since the dawn of time, since cavemen. Even cavemen said, hungry, horny, things of that nature. There's communication going on. You have to let people know what you're thinking, what you want, what you need, your desires, everything along the way. If you are a mute or if you don't tell anyone, and then you get mad at them because they can't guess, well, not all of us are mind readers. You gotta open your mouth and say something that is of relevance and has merit. So, yes, some people, they don't want to talk. They just want people to keep guessing, and that is not a marriage, that is not a relationship. So you have to talk, you have to communicate, even if you don't like the sound of your voice, too bad, you're gonna have to get past that. Communicate, because even cavemen can do it, and we're supposed to be more sophisticated than them. It's 50-50, but let's talk to each other.
All right, Mr. Mafucci, I know you have charts to talk about the communication styles and how they work and what the issues are in between relationships. So can you go to bring up the chart and kind of break it down for us?
That's right, Jay. I do have some examples, 6 of them in fact, so let's get to it. Let's communicate. Number 1, you communicate. Otherwise, you get unrealistic expectations. If you don't tell somebody what you expect from them and keep them guessing, that's not healthy. That's horrible. This isn't a guessing game. So, that's number 1. Number 2, lack of listening. It's always been said, the famous adage, if you're talking, you're not listening. So, you have to shut your mouth, and you actually have to try to listen, and if you can retain, even better. So that's number 2. On the 3, we have not prioritizing each other. You have to actually care about the other person. Hopefully, you marry them for that reason and not for any other reasons. Of course, me, being a person that cares about himself greatly, this is sometimes tough, but I try my best. On the other hand, we know Jay, he can probably do all this, so he's good. Now, number 4, misunderstandings. If you don't talk, and again, You have to keep guessing with each other. There's going to be misunderstandings. If you don't even communicate clearly, there'll be misunderstandings. Using the wrong tone, the wrong verb, the wrong rhetoric, it's going to be misunderstanding. Try to be clear and concise. Number 5, negative nonverbal communication.
Randy Savage, I know
Your mustache is crooked.
your beard is a little sideways too, but I don't want to get into that.
That's
I'm not
all
going
right.
to take personal pot shots at you or anybody else.
That's right. And when you do talk, guess what? Sometimes, even if you don't know, it could sound pretty bad. It sounds negative. And even if you do know, well, shame on you. We're trying to communicate, get past something, or come to agreement. So that's number 5. Number 6, speaking in superlatives.
Hey, you, let's fight. Them's fighting words.
Again, if you're talking, try to talk nice. Don't try to have too much sarcasm unless you're a sarcastic person. But otherwise, you have to kind of reach a medium where both of you are going to listen to each other and actually take something away from it. So, those are the 6 somebodies. So, if you want to prevent this, you got to talk clearly. No one's a mind reader, all right? You have to try to make it to where both of you are understanding each other, and more so, both of you want to hear each other, because there are times you catch each other when you're not ready or you don't want to. So that's not a marriage, that's not a healthy relationship. Remember, you came into this for better or worse. So even in the worst is the time that you really gotta sack up, or ovary up for you ladies, and just make the time and make the effort on both sides, okay? Otherwise, you're gonna be left wondering, well, I don't know what he wants. I think this, that, and the other. That's not gonna work. It has never worked. I'm sure I could find a chart that tells you and confirms you, in case you don't believe what I'm saying, that it's not gonna work. So again, talk, both of you. It can happen. It can be possible. Let's just do it.
All right, Mr. Mafuji. Remember that story I was going to talk about earlier? So this will be a perfect example of the communication, right? So my wife and I, we've been married for 14 years, right? And throughout this time, I would say certain things in a joking manner, stuff like that, and she would joke back with me. And one day, for whatever reason, it bothered her, but she never told me. And one day she just said, I want to talk to you about something. I was like, what did I do? Right? That was the first thing that came to mind. What did I do? And she said, when you say this, this, and this, it bothers me, makes me feel this way. And to me, I didn't think much of it. And I was like, She joked back with me about the same thing. And I didn't know it bothered her, because she didn't give me any clues or signs or body language that it bothered her. So one day I came home from work, believe it or not, I came home from work, and she said, okay, I want to sit down and go over this stuff. I know you don't know how this makes me feel, but I just want to lay this out for you. And she laid it out what the things were, how it made her feel. And she said, one thing I do remember clear as day, she said, I know this problem, you won't understand this. And she was right. I didn't understand it, because for me, it wouldn't bother me if she did that to me, but that's me. So I said, okay, I wish I told her she would have told me this before, sooner, because it really bothered her. But stuff I was saying, granted, this is all jokingly, she would joke back with me. I thought nothing of it, right? So I was like, okay, I could have corrected this thing if you would have told me however long ago. So now that I know she communicated that with me, I know going forward, I won't say or do what I was doing, and we'll be happier for it. Because granted, as she said, you may not understand how this makes me feel, and you probably won't get it or understand it. But yeah, I empathize where she's coming from, so I take that under consideration. Like, okay, this makes her feel this way, so let's not do this going forward. And I didn't have an issue with stopping, because it wasn't a big deal for me to continue to do that, or like something I had to do. Granted, I'm not gonna say what it is, but she said this makes her feel this way, and I would like to have her reciprocate if I came to her feeling a certain type of way about a certain thing that she said or did. So that's how I look at it from that aspect. Okay, if I'm in her position and she said it is something that bothered me, and I told her about it, I would hope that she would correct it and stop it as well as consideration for our relationship in our marriage.
I'm sure all of us could relate to that, Jay. That's for sure. We've all had that moment.
No, I don't think it's okay to use a white lie. For what? I just feel it's just better to be honest, because this is something I've always heard growing up. Once you tell a lie, even if it's a white lie, you have to remember all the lies you told. Because you're going to say it so much, you forget what you're saying. So if you tell the truth, you can never forget the truth. So I don't believe in telling a white lie if you feel it's going to hurt your spouse. Try to figure out a way that's not going to be such of a crushing blow, depending on what it is. I just feel it's always better to be honest, because, like, if you're honest, the person will never have any kind of reason to doubt you once you say anything. Because once that trust is broken, if you lie about something, granted, you may think it's not something small, but they may think it's something extremely big. So I just say avoid telling a white lie. Just be upfront and honest as best you can without hurting that person's feelings.
Yes, it's okay to tell white lies, but here are the times when men like us are set up. Because we all go through that one question, and it has to do with clothes. Honey, how do I look? That is a trap. Because if they don't look good, we can't say that. You can't say, and anything less than nice or okay. And they just storm off. So even though, like Jay said, don't tell lies, tell the truth, there are certain times. Now again, it's a white lie, because for me, she always looks great, but it's not about what I think. They're not asking to get our answer. They're asking so they can concur with what they want to think already. If they want to feel that they look good, we have to say that. This is the few times that we have to guess correctly, but this is the white lie. This is the situation where we can use it. Because if you get to the other side, well, guess what? Not only is your day ruined, but it could be your whole week, because you have to try to explain why you had to essentially use that white lie. Because it wasn't, but in their mind, they think it was. So, every now and again, yes, it's okay, but it's not a lie if you believe it. So, white lie, okay.
Okay, so this is one thing I'll always say to my wife and my kids. Don't ask me a question if you don't want the answer to it. Okay? That's me. Granted, women, they already know how they look in an outfit before they come and say anything to you. If you know your partner, you know them well enough not to ask them that question if you know they're going to say something negative or something you don't want to hear. So me, I'm saying this. If you don't want me to respond, honestly, don't ask me the question, because I don't want to hurt your feelings. That's just me.
Jay. She is your bestie. She is your best friend. She is supposed to know you like that. So, with that said, she is asking you, and you will still give her the truth. So, with that said, you are talking to your bestie, and you're saying that she will not be able to handle it, although you are saying that she knows you enough to be able to ask this question. So where are we at here? Because this is the bestie couple, Jay and his wife. So where are we landing here? Somebody's let us know in the comments. Whose side are you on?
All right, so my wife, she's very particular about what she wears, right? So I haven't seen anything on her that I didn't like. And plus, in my case, since my wife is my best friend, can't you talk to your best friend about anything and say anything? Isn't that the point of being best friends? That you can say what you want, when you want, not how you want necessarily, but you can be upfront and honest with your best friend. Isn't that how that's supposed to work?
Alright, so yeah, you are preaching to the choir, Jay, but I will use a line that my wife says. We are not friends, but I am your wife, so I need you to respect me as such. So it may sound like your wife, which is your bestie, in that situation may want you to just treat her more so as the wife and give that respect, and maybe doesn't lean towards the bestie and giving her the hard truth at all times. So again, this is a tough situation, but we're talking about communication, and every now and again, a white lie is okay. I know Jay will never sway to that side, but again, this is two sides to the coin, so somebody's, again, whose side are you on? Are you on Jay's or Mafuchi's? Are you telling the truth, or is a white lie just okay here and there? Now, it's always better not to be guessing. I know I sound like a broken record, but my wife also tells me that because I am not a person to communicate. I grew up with a family where we could read each other's minds. We knew what we were thinking, even body language. We knew what that meant and how to approach. So marrying someone that is unable to read my thoughts and body language, it's a new thing for me to have to communicate everything I'm feeling and I'm wanting. Unless I'm feeling keen or horny, then I will communicate that in many ways and forms. But otherwise, it's tough for me to do it. I do it more so now. Okay, so less guessing. Not no guessing, because I still work on it on a daily. But that's how you're able to resolve conflict, is by nipping it in the bud and not creating it to begin with, by just talking and talking. Not all of us are shaped this way or built this way, but we have to learn. And after 13 years of marriage, I finally am learning. Am I slow on this? Sure. But say what you want, at least I'm talking. I'm a caveman, and now I'm back here just talking to my wife.
I think it does help better resolve conflict because once you've been with each other long enough, you should know how to communicate. I'm not gonna say you will know how to communicate. You should know how to communicate. So when it comes to this particular area, I like how you said about reading minds. My wife and I, we can kind of sometimes read each other's mind, body language, and stuff like that over the years. I think one day I said something. She's like, "Are you reading my mind?" I was like, "Oh snap! Really? We're that couple now." So yeah, learning how to communicate is, I say, it's crucial to resolving conflict because you'll know what to say, what not to say, and you'll know how better to communicate with that person when you guys have a disagreement or an argument. So yeah, I believe once you have an understanding of, okay, when I'm angry or when we're having a conflict, how do we resolve it? I like to either resolve it right then and there. I like to take a day or two, calm down, um, just clarify what's going on, and then move forward accordingly. So it all depends on your communication style and how you resolve conflict. So the longer you're together, the better you guys communicate. Resolving conflict should be a lot easier. I believe it's on the person. For me, I believe it helps with my self awareness as far as understanding how to communicate. Because I know earlier in our marriage, I had to adjust and properly learn how to communicate because I wasn't always as calm as far as like communicating anything. It's always out of anger as far as like my emotions. It was never more like being more calm and stuff like that. So you gotta know your partner. You gotta know your partner. And I believe if you are aware of how you're acting, usually it's better when people see themselves. Like when people are on TV, they never see how they are until they view it back. When they view it back, they're like, oh, I was acting really that way. So it can help. It really depends on the person. For me, I try to be more self-aware, especially the longer we've been married. And then I like it when she points stuff out. So it's like, oh, I didn't notice that, or I didn't see it that way. So, and my wife, she's very self-aware, um, so she doesn't have that issue. But yeah, I do believe um, it can help with self-awareness if you're that type of person and you're not all about me, me, me.
Well, your co-host is a me. All right. Yes, on my end, it does help because for the longest time, I've been a person that if I don't have to say it to somebody, I'll just hold it in or I'll try to resolve it on my own. But in a marriage, that doesn't work, especially when I have an inquisitive wife who tries to guess because I'm not telling her. And, sometimes she guesses correctly and she has to pry it out of me. And because she has to go through that process, that creates conflict. So I am self-aware now, after more than 10 plus years, that if I get ahead of it, I can avoid stressing her out by her having to pull teeth with me. So again, communication. She's not a mind reader, neither am I. That's why it helps, because I have to realize she is not the enemy, okay? Our spouses are not the enemy. At least the good relationships and marriages, your spouse is not the enemy. So once you get that out of your head and also figure out that they are there to help you and assist you with anything that's going on with you, because it could ultimately affect her too. You have to also come to grips with that something is bothering you may affect her too, and just in general, in the smallest way, that it's affecting your mood with her. So that's how it helps with me. I realize I need to talk and I need to tell her. Regardless if it's good or more so bad, just say it.
But what about writing it out, like a journal or something, writing it down? Has that ever helped you at all? Like if you're bothered by something, instead of keeping it in, just writing it out and help you feel better that way?
No, I do not write out my feelings. If I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm not going to write them out to myself. I don't need a dear diary and then I go back and say, oh, I felt like this that day. Well, no kidding, because I just put that out of my head. I focus on the next day. So for me, it doesn't help. So no diary for me.
No, I'm just saying that because I think back in early 2000s, something was really bothering me. And honestly, I had no one to talk to. And I said, let me just write this out and just get it off my chest. After I wrote it out, I felt a whole lot better. So if you can't, like sometimes with my wife, I'll like to say stuff just to get it off my chest. I try not to treat her like my therapist, but your spouse, best friend, listen to all your problems, all your crap. So that's how I look at it. It's better just to get it off your chest, so you don't want to make yourself sick holding stuff in. So any advice to you, Mafuchi, if something is bothering you and your wife is willing to listen, go ahead, lay it out for her. I believe women love to show, or love to see us being vulnerable, so go ahead.
Well, you just realized the other reason why Jay probably has a healthier relationship than I do. So there you go. More reason for a happy ending.
Yes and no. I do believe it can be tough to communicate. It really depends on what you want to say and how you want to say it. I know my wife, for me, I like to know answers. Okay, so if I'm asking a question, I want to know the answer. Now, I kind of joke about this with my wife when it comes to Jesus, right? He'll do all this stuff, but I'm like, but why? And you're not supposed to ask why. So, and they'll say his ways are not our ways, right? So, as far as is it always tough to communicate? It really depends. If you're a good communicator, not necessarily, because you know how to communicate with your spouse, your parent, your child, your friends. It really depends on how you grew up and what your temperament is. I feel it's not difficult. I think certain topics can be difficult to talk about and express as far as communication, but I try to look at it as people, they don't know what you're thinking, they're not gonna guess what you're thinking, and know that a closed mouth don't get fed. So you need to communicate to people exactly what it is that you want them to know or not know.
For the most part, yes, but there is one time where it's not so tough to communicate, which is after sex, because you're just feeling very relaxed. And quite frankly, I think for all you somebodies, you could definitely agree with the fact that, hey, I'll tell you anything afterward because I'm just feeling good. And half the time I don't remember what's going on, but if you're going to ask me something there, I'm going to tell you the truth. But Aside from that situation, all the other times, for me it is. Again, if I can keep it inside and take care of it on my own, then I don't need to communicate. So is it sometimes tough? Because again, I have to realize my partner wants to know what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and just my general mood. Then that's something else that I do work on, and that's when I do communicate after a while. So that way again, I don't get into trouble or in a situation, an unnecessary one, because I just held back. There's no need to hold back. Again, you're not in a battle, you're not in a war with your spouse. They are there because it's you two against the world, quite frankly. That's how it should be, especially if you have a good one. And Jay and I definitely have good ones. And since we're on camera, we have to say that.
Yeah, supposed to be a partnership. Your spouse is supposed to be your partner. So that's something
true.
my wife always says. We're supposed to be a team. A team.
You're right at that.
All right.
Absolutely. Because, again, cavemen were able to tell their partners, unga bunga, hungry, horny, let's go search for food, things of that nature. You have to, again, you have to communicate exactly what you want and need and what you desire. And desire doesn't always have to lead to sex, okay? Most of the time, that's where we're going. But this time, no. If I desire having some beans as a topping on my pizza, and believe it or not, that is a thing, then yeah, I want that. If I want her to just bake me a cake with no frosting or anything, just plain, that's what I want. Do you see how important it is, especially if it's something specific? I think it is easier when it's something we want. Not easier if it's something that we feel is unnecessary. But when it comes to this, you just have to talk. You have to move your lips, talk, and it's okay. Because probably 8 times out of 10, you're going to get what you want. So long as you're in that nice relationship and marriage, you're going to get it. Because your partner, your spouse is your partner. As I'm sure Jay would agree with. So they are there, both of you, against the world. That's how it is.
All right. So I'll agree. Expressing your needs and wants and desires are important because you don't want to feel that you're not getting what you want in a relationship as well. I feel, of course, for sexy time, you really have to express your needs and wants just because you may feel embarrassed or anything like that. And you shouldn't because that's your spouse. But yeah, as far as things you want, things you need, it shouldn't be any kind of issue about expressing that. Depending on all what it is, most likely, as of what you said, 9 to 10 times, your spouse will do that for you, whatever that it may be. Cook a favorite meal, do whatever the case may be. So I agree. Please express your wants and desires, as long as there's nothing too outrageous or too out there. This is one of the most important parts of marriage is communication. So I feel learn your partners, learn each other's communication styles. Because once you learn each other's communication styles and things of that nature, like conflict, all of that stuff is a lot easier to navigate. So my thing is watch couple shows, especially where they fight and stuff, like Married at First Sight. And see how they communicate or the lack of the communication. I think that's a really interesting thing to see because these people don't necessarily communicate very well, or they don't know how to express how to communicate, or the person is not listening as someone is trying to explain. They're just waiting to argue back. So it's very important to listen to what the person is saying and then kind of repeat back what they said, kind of paraphrase to make sure you're understanding what they're trying to communicate to you and vice versa. That's the biggest thing I can take away from that. Because my wife and I, we did that when we had that little discussion she had with me where she said, I said this, how did you hear it? And I paraphrased it. She's like, yes, that's exactly how I felt and how I meant it. And we've been good ever since then as far as okay, we're back onto a better communication style. And I just told her I wish she would have just came to me sooner with that and not hold that in. Because if I would have known she was feeling that way, I would have stopped that a whole lot sooner.
And to piggyback a little bit on Jay's side, yes, it's always good to be comfortable, number one, to talk to your spouse in the marriage, but also, I feel, after so many years, have to figure out the way to be able to talk to them. Because again, you've heard on this topic that there are some times when we may not think and just say what we feel, but not realizing your spouse has a certain style that you have to put it. So you may feel the way you say it the first time around was fine, but again, you still have to be able to read them, especially after all this time. You've had so much practice to get it wrong. You kind of want to get it right at this point, especially after 10 plus years of marriage. You want to be able to, okay, I have the system, I know what I want to say. Now let's get into my spouse's way that I need to say it. You know, you got to put your ego aside, somebody's, okay? Because this is, again, a partnership. And if you say it properly and correctly to where your spouse understands and just focuses on the question instead of how it was said, then you're going to get better results. That's how important communication is. Not only being able to talk to them, but knowing, and it's vice versa as well, them being able to say it in the way that you'll take it okay. That's probably one of the key things to communication. Like Jay said, this is one of the most important, but I would put this under 1A. Being able to know how to communicate with each other. All right, somebody. So with that said, this concludes the topic of communication. And since you made it this far, how about a like, a subscribe? Hey, as always, you can do both. Don't feel restricted. If you want to do both, please and thank you. Absolutely. And as always, in the comment section, if there's something you would like for Jay and I to talk about, put it in there. And we will definitely put it in the queue. That's for sure. Trust us. If you don't trust us, I don't know what else to say. We've been with you for a while. You should be able to. So, this is Mafuchi. This is Jay, and we will see you next time.
Later.